We live.
Live.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining another "Don't Revive Me, Bro" podcast. I'm your host Lano with my wingman and partner in crime, Mr. Zoop. No Zoop for you. And very special guest today is Mr. Chris Keeling. Um, I've got feedback from this. Not muted. Sorry. Anyway, we have Mr. Chris Keeling coming with us from wargaming.net. How are you, Chris? Zoop.
Great, thanks.
Doing great tonight. This is a pretty cool opportunity right here to talk to Mr. Keeling. So, before we begin, I just want to thank you and let our audience know that through your generosity, the keys we're giving out tonight are going out to them. So I know they're excited about that. And just a note with that, I know we'd said earlier we're going to go give 50 to the first followers, the first 50 followers, but what we're actually going to do is we're going to give 25 to the first 25 followers, and then at that point we're just going to give the rest of them out randomly to kind of give everyone else a chance. So we're giving them out as quick as we can get them. So that being said, the director of creative product vision, what exactly is your title again? It's long and illustrious, I know that.
Director of Product Vision, that's correct.
All right, so what exactly is that?
So it's kind of a mixture of things, right? So it's a dream job. I play games a lot. I'm supposed to be playing them for a living. Unfortunately, I don't have time to do it at work. So I'm actually playing games a lot on my free time. And at work, I fill a lot of reports. I write documents like game design documents, negotiate contracts. I plan projects, and I'm traveling a lot. So it's pretty cool, actually.
So I imagine there's probably a lot of outreach with that, involvement with the gaming community, or is this more kind of behind the scenes? You're kind of telling the company what you think should happen in order to make the product a success.
I'm actually more behind the scenes. I never get out in public like this, right? I'm not part of our community team. I'm not part of our publishing team. Those are the guys who you'll see out there at player meetups. Although I make everyone that I can get to. You'll see them. They'll be answering in the forums. They will be out there giving away a lot of prizes. Having a lot of swag. Mostly, I'm actually making games, which is, to me, I really like that part of the job. So. It's really cool.
So how long have you actually been doing this for, or at least been part of the gaming industry?
I've been in the industry about 17 years now. I was in the Army for 10 years on active duty and 13 years in the reserves. I retired a couple years ago. And I started on a game called Panzer Elite that came out in 1998, 99. Which was also a World War II tank game, like our World of Tanks, except it was, a retail box game.
Probably a lot older than most of the people in the chat room right now. So.
I bet. So after that, I worked on America's Army and some other kind of military games. I've been at wargaming for a little over 6 years now.
And you said you were. I'm sorry. You said you were the first U.S. employee for War Games as well, right? Or wargaming.net.
Yes. When I started, we were working on a game called Order of War, a real-time strategy game set in World War II also. And because this was our first release that was going to be Western, it was going to be starting in English and not in Russian, the CEO decided he wanted to have an American on the team.
Oh, wow.
So I lucked out into that role.
So how did you fall into that then? Were you just the right place at the right time, or...?
It was a lot of that, and a lot of the industry is being in the right place at the right time and networking, right? So that's the keys to success for anybody who's out there looking to break into the industry. But of course, having the skills and experience, help a lot too. But yeah, I was actually at GDC Online here in Austin, and I didn't actually meet the CEO at the time. He dropped his card off at the International Game Developers Association booth and said, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody to write for war games." And so I saw the email address. I sent him an email, and it was a good fit because I've worked on. I am, I'm a combat veteran. I speak Russian.
Oh wow, that helps.
Thanks to military intelligence. And so it was a good fit for both of us. And after that game, we started working on World of Tanks. So I just stuck around and been doing it ever since.
You seem to have several fans rather, in the chat. Different people talking about where they've met you before and working with you. Mr. Keeling, and where they go. There's several. It's hard for me to keep up with it. They're all.
Do they have one BB in their tags?
I got a Tactic Blue. Hey, Chieftain, met you on the HMCS.
Oh, no, wait.
Hated about a year ago in Hamilton, Ontario. When did he become respectable? Just they're all busting your chops there. But yeah, you've got a lot of people tuned in to hear from you.
Too. But actually, people do get me confused with the Chieftain. The Chieftain is like our big name guy. He's his name is Nicholas Moran, and he lives in San Francisco. And he's kind of our face of tanks, right? He's very experienced, not only in the history of tanks, but he's also a tanker in the National Guard with deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. So he's very experienced about that, and he loves to talk about tanks. He's much more comfortable in front of a camera than I am. And but people do get us confused. I have actually somebody gave me a gift that was supposed to be for him one time.
Oh no!
And I took it, and then I looked at
I'll just keep it.
Then I looked at it, and I said, "Oh no, this isn't for me." Sorry.
Wrong guy. One Ranger Lee's curious what your MOS is.
Oh, I have several MOSs actually. I started out with my first and favorite is 11 Bravo.
11 Bang Bang.
Absolutely. 11 Bushmaster. 11 Bullet Magnet. That's it.
Yeah.
That's my first and favorite, and since then I've held others. A couple of them in military intelligence. I was in special operations, and just had a good time all around.
Cool. Well, thank you. I'm sure that he was dying to know. So on to World of Warships. What is your involvement with that? What is it that you do there?
Well, the game itself is actually made in our St. Petersburg studio. And so, although I've been there and visited the studio, mostly I give my feedback remotely. Of course, I've been in since way before Alpha, back when we first had a functional build. So I've seen the game grow over time, given a lot of feedback. I've actually had members of my team that work for me go over there and assist them with things like level design and the game economy, things like that to help tweak and balance the game. I haven't played it as much as I like. I've got to say I haven't played any game as much as I would like, much less even our own games as much as I would like. In fact, my 11-year-old son has more than twice as many battles as I do in World of Tanks.
Right. That's great, though.
And I've been playing it since the Russian alpha test.
Right. That's great.
A lot of wipes, though, and a lot of different accounts.
So you go to Russia. Now, I'm just kind of curious. When you go there, with your background and everything, having been where you're at, do you run into problems over there? Because I've known people that work for the embassy, and they say when they go over there, it's kind of like the movies. You get people bumping up against you, and gorgeous females just presenting themselves.
I had that happen on a trip to Belarus in 1995. That was interesting, but I stayed safe in a way.
In a way.
And away. I stayed away.
Oh, and away. Okay.
Didn't get in any trouble there. But I actually was going to move. People probably realize that our first studio was in Minsk. When I started, we had 60 or 65 people in Minsk and me in the U.S. And so I actually was going to move there. And the local KDB, which is the Belarusian for KGB, decided that was not a good idea because of my background.
The whole military intelligence thing and
three-letter agencies and speaking Russian. I guess they didn't believe I retired, right? So
yeah.
So that didn't happen. Although I'm certainly welcome to visit whenever, which I do. I enjoy visiting the place. Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, they're all beautiful countries, nice people, very friendly. And no, I'm not spying on them. I don't have time to get my own job done, much less have a second job.
That's funny too. The game's being developed in Russia, and got what, one maybe two Russian ships right now in the beta. You know, it's kind of selfless that they're
Ship envy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, let's think about it. What did the Russian Navy really contribute? Well, the Soviet Navy really contribute in World War II, right?
I think they had the Kirov, and that's about it. And that was a battleship.
Their job was to keep Murmansk safe, and that was because that was really the only northern port. That's where we delivered all of our Lend-Lease goods and supplies, all the British tanks and American tanks, and tens of thousands of Ford trucks and things like that, and millions of pounds of spam.
Spam.
Yeah, but that's where we delivered. It was to Murmansk. So they kept that open around from northern Norway into Murmansk, and the real naval battle. I mean, even the Atlantic wasn't a very major naval battle. It was mostly submarines sniping at shipping, until we started escorting the convoys, and that dropped off quite a bit. And of course, the introduction of aircraft allowed us to spot submarines much more quickly. So that kind of killed the wolf packs. And other than the whole Bismarck, Tirpitz, Scharnhorst, Prince Eugen, the German Navy, it fought very briefly and then it was gone. So the real battles are the Americans and sometimes the British in the Pacific. Those were huge.
Yep.
So that's where we should start, right?
So you mentioned some very good German battleships. So I'm assuming pocket battleships have been confirmed for world warships then, huh?
I have no comment.
Do you have any particular favorite that is in the game that maybe you can't talk about, one that's obviously not open to everybody else, but any particular favorites now that's in the game that you like to use?
The Kitakamo is my favorite because it has torpedoes. I love the torpedoes, right? They're so damaging. It's like being it's like having a 12 gauge, right? You're just running up and just bam, but you gotta get close. And with that, it's got so many torpedoes on it. You can just run up there and fire volley after volley after volley real quick, and then get out if you're lucky, because destroyers get squashed pretty bad. Earlier, before I actually closed beta, when we were playing a lot of other ships, I really loved the USS Iowa. And in fact, we made a map one time based on, I don't know if you may remember the World of Tanks map called Fjords. It was set on the coast of Norway, kind of. And we made a similar map with a lot of ice on it, and a big ice bridge over the middle of the map between two islands and some cool stuff. We put the entire World of Tanks map on a tiny island in the corner, because that's the different scale we're talking about here. That entire World of Tanks map was on a small island. And I would drive by, I would, sail by, I guess, in the USS Iowa and unload with my 16-inch guns and flatten the entire village in that map.
Right.
Cool.
That's always nice, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. The aircraft carriers are really cool. It's a great kind of a mini game inside the game where you're balanced.
I'm sorry I cut you off, but that's where I was really surprised, because I was assuming the aircrafts were just going to kind of be tedious and not very fun. You're always hanging out in the back, and then after I got one, I was like, I want to get the next one. These are actually really good, so that was rewarding.
It's a lot more fun than playing artillery in World of Tanks, because you actually manage which planes I'm launching. You have to recover them based on their fuel. You want to make sure that there's fighter support for your torpedoes. Do you put up the fighters first and then send the torpedo planes up so to make sure that they have fighter cover, or do you put the torpedoes out first and then send the fighters after and risk that the torpedoes might get caught with no fighter cover? So there's a lot of concerns that you have to have. How many, you got to have enough planes on the deck, refuel them and rearm them, turn them around, get them back out there.
That's interesting. That's interesting, because I know from just seeing in-game and on Reddit and other venues, carriers seem to, I don't want to say they're controversial, but people seem to either love them absolutely or hate them. There's like no in between. And those that love them, I played around the other night, and there's a guy with a Lexington, and I think he destroyed 6 ships, including an Iowa, a North Carolina, and probably the most skilled aircraft skipper I have ever seen. It was phenomenal what he did. But there's definitely a different type of strategy to it in the way you maneuver your planes, the way you launch your torpedoes and crisscross them, and just trapping a ship. So you said it's like a mini game, and it very much is. It's almost like you're in commander mode. You're looking top down on the map.
It's like a real-time strategy game inside of an action shooter. It's like you actually have to plan so much in advance, right?
Well, speaking of that, and for those who don't know, with World of Warships being a free-to-play game, how much different is that for you guys from the typical production from like a AAA release? Like you guys having to balance the free-to-play aspects of it, and then I know it has a premium service ship and all that stuff in it. So how much is that? Are you dealing with all that? You said you had to deal with some of the economy and whatnot on that, but
well, most of it was actually balancing, balancing the in-game. Obviously, we have a lot of experience in that, right? Already with the gold and the credits and so forth. But there's a different economy too of like the experience, right? How do you make sure that people don't get to a point where there's a lot of repetition or boredom or anything like that? How do you reward good gameplay? For example, the capital ships, right? Playing the capital ships is a reward in itself. So you want to be able to earn your way up to that. How long should that take? We have to balance the amount of time. How many games does an average player have to make to play to make enough credits, enough experience to afford those ships? That way, they can constantly be improving their experience and not get stuck in a rut. So, because it's a live game, like a AAA game, like Battlefield, Call of Duty, stuff like that, those games are done when they're out, right? You buy that game and it's finished, and we don't do that. So we have to balance the game continually as we add new maps, as we add new content like ships and things. We have to constantly balance it internally, but we also want to take the feedback from the players to be able to add new features and new game types, modes, play modes, and things like that. So we're always improving it.
So now, from my point of view, this game very easily could have been, at least World of Warships and World of Tanks, the entire line. You very easily could have made these as just here's your $60, here's your full game, and all right, you want this airplane, pay $5, we're going to give it to you. I mean, I'm playing World of Warships right now, and I see a complete game that personally I would probably be willing to pay that much for. I've enjoyed it that much. So why did you all decide to go this route when you did? Obviously, there was something that you all decided, hey, this is the way we need to go.
So there's a lot of good reasons. Some of them are practical reasons. For example, it's pretty well known that most of the people playing games in the CIS are playing pirated games. If you have a free-to-play game, you don't have to worry about piracy because it's free. So we kind of avoid that. Another thing is that it's a more interesting model, right? We don't want to just build something and dump it on people. We want to interact with the community. We're part of that community. We have people who play the game, people who make the game that are huge military history fanatics. I'm one of them, right? We love working on these things and adding more detail, fixing things. We don't want to just put out patches and stuff like that. We want to actually build a lot more content. And to do that, we have to have an ongoing revenue stream, and it doesn't have to be huge. We don't ever want to punish anybody. The 90% of players who play for free, we don't want to punish them at all. We don't want to make them feel pain. We want them to pay if they want to, but we want them to play. Because what they're providing for us and for the players who do pay is content. They're providing somebody to play against. They're providing the fun in the game, right? The fun. World of Tanks, World of Warships, World of Warplanes. None of these games would be any fun if you were in there by yourself and there were no other planes or tanks or ships, right? So we want to have them in there, and so we let everybody have all the core content for nothing. And if you want to play. If you want to play premium tanks, ships, and planes, that's great. That's a good part of our income, but those are not any better than any other tanks in the game. We've designed them so that they're mid-tier, right? If you're playing a tier 8 premium, it's middle of that tier. Yep, half the Tier 8 vehicles are better and half the Tier 8 ones are worse. So we don't want to provide an advantage in that in gameplay. In game, we don't want any player to have an advantage over another player because of something they can only buy.
So basically, it's kind of tweaking it so that you're rewarding someone that pays enough that they like it, but you don't skew the balance enough that the people that don't pay are punished. So that sounds like a very hard tightrope to walk right there.
It is, and mostly the advantage is in how the individual player advances or progresses through the tech tree, right? The research tree. And so you can research more quickly. If you pay, you can't. I wouldn't even say research more quickly. You still have to play, right? Sure, you can buy some stuff with gold, buy some silver with gold, and buy some stuff with the silver. But the one thing you can never buy is XP. You have to fight. You have to play to get that XP, and that's the limiter on everybody, whether they're paying or free. And that's really the big equalizer. And if you want to pay for stuff, like we have, camouflage and insignia and special skins and things like that don't affect the game at all, that you can buy.
Well, I've played several free-to-play games, and 90% of them, it feels like if you don't pay anything, then you are punished. It's like you have no chance against it, and then it turns into this gray area of it's a full pay-to-play game, but we're offering it to you to play for it. It's like a mix of both, and it doesn't. It's really imbalanced for those that do pay versus those who don't. But when I got World of Warships and started playing, I felt like I was being able to progress on my own without paying anything, get something rewarding for that progression, and then after that made me want to buy a premium ship. That made me want to put money into it. I was like, man, this is well worth it. And that's when all of us at DRMB were talking about. Hopefully they'll do if you pre-order a premium ship, you can get the beta access, because as soon as one of us got a key, then the next one got a key, and then it just started. Everyone's like, "Give me a key," because we were loving it, playing it to death, and we've not seen Zoop since. So he's been gone ever since. But so in regard to that, I think you guys are definitely on the right track of balancing the free versus the pay, and it doesn't. I have never died in there or played a mission to where I felt like I was beaten by a pay-to-win mechanic. It always felt like I died because I made a mistake, not because he's paid $20 and got some superior ship. So that's one thing you guys are ahead of, doing a lot better than a lot of the other ones trying to do the free-to-plays. And that just leading to our next question is wargaming.net has a huge following. And I guess that would be in part of that, but how else does that make you feel about your position and everything there and moving forward for wargaming.net?
I love it, and actually we're vastly more popular in the Russian-speaking world than we are in the English-speaking world, and we're very popular here, no question about it. But like if I go over to like Moscow or Minsk or Kiev or someplace, and I'm walking down the street with like a World of Tanks shirt on, people will walk up to me and talk to me about the game. And that
must be pretty cool, just to have some random go, hey.
All the time.
Yeah.
If I get into a taxi and I start talking about World of Tanks in Russian, the taxi driver will immediately turn around and start giving me advice.
Telling you how to play it, yeah.
Yes, because everybody plays it. It is a cultural phenomenon.
So it's huge over there. They have a lot of pride behind this game, then.
Yes, definitely. But I love playing like with friends and like other veterans, right? So I'm in the 1st Veterans Battalion, this clan that we've been together since the very beginning of America's Army, back when I was a dev on that in 2002. Those guys play not just shooters, but also things like World of Tanks. So playing with those guys is fun. Being able to go to community events and like player meetups, things like that. There's nothing like meeting the fans and talking to people who really enjoy the game about how much fun they're having with it.
Now you said America's Army. Was that the free-to-play game that came out about the time of Ghost Recon, the original, and I think even Counter-Strike, the first go-around came out about that time.
Yeah, that was the one.
I remember that. I actually played that. I had it while I was in college. I was in a fraternity. We had it set up on LAN, so we were playing that. We'd rotate that and Counter-Strike. So kind of
bunny hopping in Counter-Strike. So a couple of cool things that America's Army innovated with were actual hand and arm signals. We implemented those in the game. You can see the guy with his Nomex gloves. Got
right.
Enemy.
Hand signs.
Send up the first sergeant, right, or the PL, and then we also had, that was the first game where you would see your opponent as the enemy, but they would see themselves as America's Army. So that was a kind of a cool feature that you weren't playing on opposite teams. You were playing on the same team, but you appeared to each other to be on opposing teams, which was kind of an interesting mechanic.
That's pretty neat. I guess the whole Army thing. They had you have an image that you have to maintain, and I'm sure that they wanted to be very delicate in how they did that.
There was a lot of politics in that game.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
There was a question in chat asking your opinion. How do you feel about the balance between realism versus game for the games that you're part of and working on?
I'm really a big fan of historical authenticity, and you get in a game of, let's say, World of Tanks, right? Because that's obviously out already. You're 15 on 15, but you've got French, British, German, Japanese, Chinese, and Russian tanks all mixed together fighting a whole other team of French, British, German, Russian, Japanese tanks.
Right.
And some of them are pre-war, some of them are post-war, some of them are World War II. How is that realistic, right? Well, we're not trying to imitate an actual battle. We're not trying to be historically accurate. In fact, we introduced historical battles as a game mode into the game, where you were limited to your M18 Hellcat could only have the 76mm gun, and you could only have so much APCR on your tank, and only certain tanks from certain countries were allowed in each battle, and nobody was interested. A lot of people were vocally supportive of it, but but the players were more interested in having fun than in reenacting history.
Right.
Personally, I love that game mode, but again, I'm kind of a bit of a fringe element, right? I really, really want the history, but the authenticity that we have in the tanks, in the experience, that's what we really have in the game.
Right.
So the tanks are modeled after the real tanks. They have actual, all the hit boxes are there for engines, for fuel tanks, for the crew members, for the gun, for the ammunition storage. We do tons and tons of research. We have a research team in Minsk and in Moscow, and we also have a we have a separate research team for ships in St. Petersburg, and we have a U.S. research team here in Austin that reports to me, actually, and they do pretty much the Americans for a little of everything: planes, ship, tanks, whatever.
So going off of that historical note, and actually first I want to make a quick announcement. To everyone in the chat right now, Bohica Claus has been very nice, and he's kind of behind the scenes giving out these beta keys. Chris was kind enough to just offer us another 25. So
nice.
if you're very kind to Mr. Bohica, he will start getting those out. Those are in the drive right now, Bo, under new 25 or something like that. So we
just spam his Twitter. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So thank you for that, Chris. But
no problem. You said you were going to give the first 50 away, and then you had to cut it in half. So I figured you could use another 25.
So
that's awesome. Thank you.
So his history. I'm a huge fan of history. One of my favorite books of all time is Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors, which the battle off Samar and everything. But as far as detail in these ships, I mean, they are phenomenal. The game itself is gorgeous, and the ships, I mean, I still can't get over the detail on them. I mean, I love just moving the camera around and observing the detail on them in game while I'm playing or just steaming full speed ahead. I mean, it's phenomenal. How much work goes into one of those ships?
That's 3 artist months, full time.
Per ship.
Per ship.
Yeah.
3 months. Is
Per
that one? Is that one artist, or is that a team of artists?
It's 3 artist months. So if we take
3. Okay,
month,
sorry.
if we take 1 month to do it, then it's like 1 animator, 1 skinner texture artist, and 1 model artist, right? For 1 month each, that kind of thing. It's 3 months of work to make 1 ship. So they're
It's quite a bit.
really a lot of work. And before we did that, before we were even in alpha, we sent out research teams with video teams and photographers all over the world to where we have things like museum ships. So if you go to like the USS Hornet in San Francisco Bay, or I believe the Enterprise is in New York Harbor. All the ships that are more different places. The USS Texas in Houston, with its interesting sponson-mounted 14-inch guns on this facing front and rear, inside and out, all the ships that we could, everything from the turret interiors, the storage rooms. Like we wanted to see, for example, how vulnerable are the storage rooms for the ammunition below the turrets? Where exactly are they located? We've got. We went to the National Archives. We have this 20-foot long blueprint of Big Mo, BB-63, the USS Missouri, from the original development plans for the builder. We've gotten all kinds of things like that.
Big Mo.
Yeah. So these in-game Citadel hits, I mean, that's actually factual. Where those rounds land, if one landed there in real life, that's likely what would happen.
That's what we're trying to model. Yes. And in fact, we also try to model things that are going on in the ship at the same time, which is why your damage control crew team can be assigned to different places. Not like in World of Tanks, we simulate getting out and changing a track, which would take more than the length of the entire game, with a repair kit. But in warships, we use damage control parties, just like you would on a real naval ship. And the vessel, at the team on the vessel, they run around and fight fires or do things like that. And you have to kind of prioritize what's more important to you: the fire near the ammunition storage, or if the refrigerator's on the blink in the chow hall.
Right. Is there any plan or thought toward putting an option to see like the internal, like just maybe the armor, the more susceptible to fire, and in different target zones that you should aim at a ship, like where you could, like when you're in the port in the game and you hit it and it'd show like this is your citadel and this is your engines, so on and so forth, to kind of give some players, especially new, maybe not so much of a history buff, more of an idea of where they should be aiming and just kind of ease them into it a little bit. Is that?
I'm not on that end of things at the moment, but we did that for both tanks and warplanes. So
Right.
I would
Very
not,
likely.
That would be unlikely, right? You got to have something for the new player to show them, hey, yeah, here's where the armor is, right? There's a belt line right at the water line of extra thick armor, designed to stop torpedoes and things like that. Like, if I want to knock out their command center, where do I aim? You look for that spinning radar and all the antennas, and you shoot right below it.
Right. Right. Well, when I first started, I'm not much of, like I said before, I'm not a vet of any branch or anything. So when I started off, it was kind of just guesswork, and then you get a citadel hit, you're like, okay, there is bonus damage in particular areas, and you just kind of, it was a little harder in the beginning, just until you experienced it yourself to know that was actually possible. Otherwise, you just think the whole ship is static in a way where it's just equal damage. So, an idea, but you've already done it before, so yeah, I would imagine it's likely. You guys have done tanks, planes, and ships. Anything else on the horizon, or?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
And
we won't. If you tell us, we won't tell anybody.
Okay, well,
Right.
I'll
put
all our listeners under NDA, and
right, yeah.
Well, I can't talk about anything. I'm actually working on a completely different project, which has nothing to do with tanks, planes, or ships. So it hasn't
Spaceships? No.
It hasn't been announced yet, but it will be soon. But I like the way you're thinking. So
There's a hint, guys. You heard that.
Yeah.
Might be intergalactic warfare. We don't know.
And we got a taste of that in the beta, even. Which did you have a chance to play that
yeah,
by the way?
it was
I
pretty
did.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was very unique. I thought I was like lost in Tron or something right there for a little bit.
That
Yeah,
actually turned out better than I expected. Like, I just fully expected that to just be a cosmetic switch for the landscape, maybe, but it actually ended up being somewhat unique. Is there any plans for that?
you guys probably aren't old enough to remember this, but there was a old Japanese anime from 30 years ago called Star Blazers, and the star of that show was the battleship Yamato, which had been resurrected from the desert of the Pacific Ocean, where our oceans had all been nuked off the planet by these attackers, and it turned into a spaceship. And so the battleship Yamato was flying through space with other ships fighting these alien enemies, right? So when I saw that beta of the ships flying in space, the warships flying in space, that first thing I thought of was that show. So it was pretty cool.
So since that was 30 years ago, it probably just got over to Russia a couple of years ago, and they ran with it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, that's interesting, and it was a unique game mode, and it really looked like a lot of time was put into that too. So I can't imagine it was just there for that one brief, what was it, 1 or 2 week period.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Sounds like from chat you got some Star Blazers fans. Other people are like, yeah, I remember that, and that's what got me into anime, blah, blah, blah. So,
Cool.
yeah, cool.
So we're not only expanding in the directions that we're going, right? We don't want to just make. Before we made World of Tanks, we made strategy games. We made real-time strategy games, turn-based strategy games. We're real hardcore PC and tabletop gamers, right? We love military history, and that's what we're all about. So we want to branch out into different areas, right? We put out World of Tanks on iOS and Android, on the Xbox 360. We've announced we're going on a next-gen console. And so we want to continue branching out as much as we can into different platforms, but also we want to go into different areas, right? We don't just want to be known for tanks, ships, and planes. We want to do other stuff too. So we're looking at what we can do, where we can expand, and how we can grow as a company into different areas. Right now, we're already growing fast. We have almost 150 million players right now.
Wow,
that's big.
Wow, that's huge.
We have about 20 million on the mobile platforms and half a dozen million, 6 million on the Xbox 360. I'm sure we'll get a lot more once we launch on Xbox One. I'm sure we'll get a lot more once we launch Warships. So we're growing. I remember when we hit 50 million, and it was like this huge party, right? It was, woohoo! What are we doing? We're taking over the world, and now we're at 150 million. And it's like over 3 years later, right? So 50 million players a year or something like that. That's a lot of growth.
It's a lot better than most.
Well, and with growth too. I mean, you're talking about earlier. As long as it takes to make a ship, 3 months or so. With the free-to-play structure, whereas most games, they release their game, they might do DLC for a year or two, and they're done. They move on to the next project. You can keep this going and going and going, and you build up a fan base that stay with the game and watch it evolve. And I mean, it almost seems like it could go on for a decade almost if it wanted to.
Sure, as long as we keep improving the engine and the artwork, right? As long as we add content, we add maps, we add new vehicles, we add new game modes and things like that. Yeah, we could definitely keep going, but the key is keeping the engine and especially the video rendering and stuff like that, keeping that really smooth, beautiful, and not make sure it can run still on a lot of platforms like older computers. I know as hardcore gamers, we probably got 32 gig of RAM and a terabyte SSD and stuff like that. I know I do, but a lot of people that are playing this game, they're playing it for free and would pay if they could, but may not be able to pay. Like I have a friend of mine who's in Iran, and they can't pay online there.
Oh wow!
It's illegal. They can't do any international banking, all kinds of stuff. So it's hard for him to pay. He'd love to pay.
Right. Yeah.
So you know, it can be difficult to be able to afford maybe a top-end computer. So we want to make sure that we can always run on the last generations of computers, so that you know, people who keep their computer for 5 or 10 years and aren't hardcore gamers like that can afford to play.
Is there ever any chance? Now, this was one question from chat, but is there any chance of any cross-platform play now that you guys are going to the I guess the current gen versus the last gen, versus like PC? So like PlayStation and PC, or Xbox and PC. Any chance? Or
Most of these limitations are platform limitations. Some of them are technically possible. For example, I know Microsoft has conducted tests of different games with PC players against console players, and because the controls are completely different, there's some advantage to, for example, playing with a mouse and a keyboard over playing with a controller. Also, because there's some lag in the controller and in the platform. So probably not. Another aspect of that relationship is if you're playing on PC, we host everything, and therefore when you buy gold on the PC platform, you're paying us, right? When you buy gold on the Xbox, Microsoft gets their revenue share because they're providing a lot to that platform. They're distributing the game and hosting and doing a lot of things for us. So we want to, you know, it's hard to correlate those two things without
that makes sense.
without contractual obligations entering the picture. So
absolutely,
it's much easier to just to keep it on the platform it's on.
Fair enough. I've just seen the question asked a few times. I thought I'd get that out there to you.
Now, what we would like to do, now people always ask if we want to mix planes, tanks, and ships in the same game. And
that's been asked a few times, yeah.
You know, the scale is wrong, right? If I'm going to play World of Tanks, World of Warships, and World of Warplanes all mixed together, and there's, say, 15 of each on each side, why am I going to play in a tank when one bomber can take out 5 tanks in a blast? Why would I play in a plane when one destroyer can shoot down half a dozen planes? It's the scales are completely different, right? So our maps in World of Warships are like 30 kilometers on a side. In World of Warplanes, they're like 10 kilometers on a side. And in World of Tanks, they're like 1.5. So it would take me the entire game in World of Tanks, in a tank, to drive far enough to be able to see a ship or a plane.
Right. Yeah.
The scale on these is just not really good for gameplay. So
for mixing it all together.
Yeah. Where we would like to mix them together is in the strongholds, the kind of clan wars thing at the top of the end game where the clans fight. It would be great, in my opinion, to mix, like, if you have an amphibious battle, like if it's a coastal area, you fight a warships battle, and then you fight a ground, maybe an air battle for air superiority, and then you fight a ground battle, or something like that.
Yeah, more like a stage fight.
Sure.
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
So
that would make sense.
That sounds that sounds. I can definitely see that merging one into the other. Not one giant battle, because that would just like you said, tanks are cool and everything, but one shell from a battleship or even a smaller destroyer is probably gonna put a crater in the ground where the tank used to be. So.
Right. There's cases in the at Normandy where there were armor units sitting behind the beachhead, and the naval gunfire support went so far back that it was flipping tanks over.
Just from the
explosion,
shock,
without hitting them, just from the shock, they were flipping tanks over.
Wow.
Yeah. So
gotta love U.S. naval power.
I'd hate to be on the business end of that.
Yeah. Well,
so
I'm sure the Bismarck would give equivalent gunfire support.
True.
For invasion of the cliffs of Dover.
True, absolutely. So I kind of want to progress along to another thing now. Operation Supply Drop has been very good to us. We're actually a part of them. And for those of you in the chat that aren't aware of what Operation Supply Drop is, they're a 501c3 organization that supports our NATO coalition forces overseas by providing video games and consoles. you know, this is a very near and dear thing for me, and I'm sure it is for Chris as well. Both being veterans, you know, it wasn't around when I deployed in 2009, and I really wish it would have. It would have been a big boost for morale for all the people around me. So what they do has a huge effect on our soldiers overseas, not just U.S., but Australian, British, all the coalition forces. So they've done a really great job, and Chris happens to be on the board of directors for that. And that's actually how we, part of the reason why he's here with us. Operation Supply Drop, and Glenn Banton, the CEO, so to speak, of Operation Supply Drop, was kind enough to pass our info along to him. So, Chris, how did you get? Yeah, thanks, Glenn. Thanks. Salute. The little 07. How did you get involved with Operation Supply Drop?
So, talking about you know, not having games in theater, when my team would come back from either a patrol or a mission or whatever, we would often this is back in like 2005, 2006. We'd often blow off steam by taking our laptops and landing them together and playing some like Delta Force Black Hawk Down or something like that. And because when you're getting shot at a lot and you can't shoot back because you don't know where anything's coming from, it's kind of frustrating, right? And you're very tense, and you come back and you're like, now I can just shoot, and I can shoot my driver in the back of the head because I didn't like the way he was driving. No, but we used to do that, and that was a great way to blow off a lot of steam. So when I found out about Operation Supply Drop, which was actually an accident, they were here at a conference here in Austin because they're local, and I saw them and I said, hey, what do you guys do? And we started talking, and that was it. And Glenn was all over immediately, following up on that, as he does. He's a bulldog with this stuff.
Yeah, he is.
Which is really good. So I immediately referred him, you know, referred our PR organization to doing this. I mean, obviously, you know, I would want to help. Like you said, I'm a veteran and I'm retired, and I like to stay in touch with veterans, like playing with veteran clans and things like that, like first 1VB. And so, yeah, I was all over that. I hooked him up with, we have, in May, May is our military charity month drive, mainly because it's VE Day, right, which is May 9th. And so we pick several charities to support, and we have special packages that if you buy them, we donate a bunch of it to charity for the entire month. So each May, we're able to give tens of thousands of dollars to each of these charities because of what they, you know, what we've been able to get from the players as donations. We also encourage direct donations, and we also support things like the 8-Bit Salute, which just happened this past weekend. Yep. Which is kind of a gaming marathon to raise money for OSD, and we just raised $300,000.
Oh wow!
Nice, that's great.
Which, by the way, in regards to 8-Bit Salute, you know, donations are still going on, so I'm sure Moobot's probably thrown that link up there for DRMB. So we're not urging you to or forcing you to, but if you feel willing, yeah, if you feel willing to even give $1, you know, that absolutely helps this wonderful cause that helps so many people overseas. So
anything and everything helps.
Yep, absolutely. So
we support other charities too, like AmVets, which I'm a member of, and things like that. So it's a good cause. You know, they're all good causes.
So what's been the most challenging aspect of being on the board of directors for OSD?
It's not really hard. Glenn keeps us organized and on point.
Excuse me.
He sends out things when we need to, you know, respond to them, and the problem comes when we have our meetings. Like we tend to have meetings like quarterly, and we'll have a meeting and we'll all be hanging out talking about either, you know, oh, when were you in? Which unit were you in? What was the coolest thing you saw in combat? You know, all this kind of stuff. And then some of the guys like have such cool jobs, like guys on the board of director, silencer and suppressors. And I love cans. It's Texas. I can do whatever I want, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like to shoot fire, and so we'll be talking about these things. We've got people who've been in other parts of the game industry, or who are in, for example, at Stratfor, who are in, defense analysis, right? Real serious stuff, analyzing military intelligence data as a private consulting company.
Right.
There's a lot of cool people to hang out with.
Trading war stories and
Yeah, so
past histories.
the hard part is just staying on task, which is why Glenn is so good at that.
So, talking about trading war stories and everything, and the whole historical aspect, and I meant to ask this earlier. What is your favorite time frame, or focus? Is it World War II, or do you prefer another time frame? Because I kind of like Civil War myself and World War II.
I can't stand the Civil War.
No?
Americans shooting Americans is just bad mojo.
No, I can't stand that either. But
I study it.
Growing up,
a lot of biographies of great generals and great leaders, and our presidents and founding fathers and things like that. And I just finished one on Lee. I have one on Grant that I'm about to start. But it's interesting technologically, strategically, tactically. But yeah, just the thought of it.
Yeah, see, we growing up in on the East Coast in Maryland and now living in Virginia, it's kind of in the middle of all of it, so it's kind of hard to avoid it. So, but I had a granddad in World War II. My dad was in Vietnam, so basically anything modern from that point on, I eat up everything I can get on it. So.
I'm really interested in all military history, from the Roman times through, the Dark Ages and on. But World War II is by far, to me, the most interesting time, both technically because of the advancements in weapons and technology, strategically because of the greater impact of transportation, like trucks and planes and ships. The fact that logistics really won that war. As I believe Napoleon said, amateurs study tactics, the professionals study logistics, and also the politics of that war are really interesting. In part because many of them, they're still around, right?
Right.
When you talk about ancient Rome's gone, right? The impact we feel still, but it's not there for you to study. World War II still, we still have living veterans from World War II. We still have a lot of battlefields that still have material on them.
You still have live ammo being found in Germany every other year.
Right. And also, the countries are still around in pretty much the same format that they were then, with the exception of Germany, obviously, and Japan having changed their governments. And now that the Soviet Union is gone, but I lived, I guess, about half of my life with the Soviet Union existing as the Soviet Union. So really, there's still a lot of the politics from that war.
Gone, but definitely not forgotten. Somewhat resurgent right now.
Yeah. So it's I would definitely say World War II. And as far as games go, I prefer to play World War II by far, bar none. I know it's people got tired of it after 10 years of Call of Duties and Medal of Honors and things like that, but I'm not tired of it.
Everything I see is people are ready to go back to World War II right now. I think the past decades focused on modern warfare, and based upon
futuristic stuff.
Yeah, I think based upon what's going around the world, just the market being oversaturated with those type of games, I think people are ready to go back to World War II. There's a World War I game that came out a little while ago that got a little bit. Honestly, I don't see how. I haven't seen it yet, but to me, World War I is basically, climb over the wall, get shot by a volley of bullets, or put on your mask so you don't get mustard gassed. But it's an interesting concept.
Right. The tanks aren't as much fun either when you have an 18-man crew and it only drives 5 miles an hour and it goes 1 mile between breakdowns. Yeah, things like that.
It's stuck in a pothole. So.
Right. So But yeah, World War II, it's still got it for me as far as I'm concerned. Plus, a lot of the modern stuff is too close to home.
Yeah, I feel that too.
Not so much in a PTSD sense, although I do tend to pick those games apart. Like, you messed this up, you messed this up, you messed this up, right? Which I also do with World War II games. But the modern ones also, I mean, keep in mind, games are a global thing, right? It's not a regional thing. It's not like America's Army. That's hua hua, all about America. But when you're making a game that's modern, and you have to keep in mind that other countries are going to be playing it. When you have things like the dreaded Moscow airport level, where you're a civilian and being dragged along by Russian terrorists, and you have to execute every civilian in the airport. As I recall, the Russian government wasn't too happy with that game. In fact,
you alienate a lot of your market.
They banned it, right?
Yeah.
There's, like I said, I have this friend in Iran. Do you think he's going to want to play a lot of these games where every enemy is Middle Eastern? All the bad guys? No, he's not going to want to play that. So, keeping in mind the politics of game distribution and development, World War II is pretty safe. It's over. The bad guys are gone.
Right.
So it's a pretty fair to say that it's a good place to play, where it's not going to be offending anyone too much, right? It's not.
So what would be your favorite game of all time?
Oh,
game,
man.
any particular favorites? I'm gonna hit you with a hard one.
Yeah, there we go.
Man, so
Wing Commander.
The first Commander was awesome, and Mark Hamill did a great job with the voice. The first game I played in 5 was I played a Colossal Cave on a mini mainframe.
God, that's something I've not heard of.
Yeah, it's just a text adventure, right?
Nope.
Before there were PCs.
Okay.
I also played Space War. Then I got an Atari. Then I got a Pong. Then I got an Atari. So I played a lot of games. It's really hard to say what's the best game ever.
Maybe not the best, but the one you enjoy the most to play. It doesn't have to be the most graphical powerful. Just what can you always fall back on?
Yeah, like for the 90s, when I think of the 90s, I threw out Wing Commander, but I also think Command and Conquer. I loved Command and Conquer. I played that game for hours on end, something like that.
Yeah, see?
Still stuck?
Still tough.
I don't stick to a game long enough usually to even.
He's like you, Lano. You start a game, you don't finish it, you move on, you play another good game.
I knew that was coming. Yeah.
I do really like MMOs. I like RPGs, not the RPG 7s, but also the online games, right? And but like World of Warcraft, I only played that for like a year and a half. I've tried a lot of other ones. I've tried like Star Wars: The Old Republic because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. But I only played that for like 6 months. I play a lot of the single player.
That's still good time, though. I mean, you're saying I played it for a year. I played it for 6 months. That's a lot more time than most people will put to one. I mean, I've picked up and played several games. I'm like, man, this game is great. But after 20 hours, I'm done. Not to say that the game's finished or that it wasn't still being great. Just I put something else in front of me and it's taking my time in it.
I did that with Skyrim. When Skyrim came out, the first 2 months I played 152 hours. And thanks to Steam letting me know it was 152 hours, I was like, that's ridiculous. I deleted it.
But you were enjoying it, though.
I was enjoying it, but I could not have that big time sink, right? But one of the things actually that I love about our games is, not to go back and be a marketing pitch because I'm not in marketing, but they're really fast. So the average game in World of Tanks is like 7 to 8 minutes. I can get up in the morning. I can play 1 or 2 games of World of Tanks if I want to. I can come home. I can play it. If I'm, taking a break at work, I pop in, play a battle, jump out, bust the stars off a few of my premiums. I have 65 of them, and just keep, and you can keep doing it. And if I don't play it for a few weeks, it's not like it goes away, right? Or things change, the whole universe of the world changes, or whatever, like a persistent world game. Or I forget where I am. I can just go right back in and play.
Right, I've had that happen. reload a game, and you're like, what was I doing?
Yeah, where was I?
Never mind.
Another thing going off that, we were talking about this the other day amongst the DRMB. One of the things I love about, I'm loving about World of Warships right now is in other games, you always feel like there's a constant need to rank up, to level up. You got to prestige, you got to go back. Oh, my KD's below 1.5. People are going to think I'm some kind of noob. And you're always worried about self-image. But here, I just get in a ship. If I'm sunk, if I'm the first player sunk, you know what? There's nothing that's going to tell everyone that in my stats. I mean, I don't feel like I have to compete. I feel like I can just go out and enjoy the game and relax, which to me
I
is...
love stats. Not to show anyone else.
You're part of the problem.
I don't want them to show anyone else, or they don't even have to be viewable by anyone else. I just like to see them.
Well, yeah, I like
how much
my
time
own
I've
stats.
played, how many ships have I sunk, what is my accuracy,
Well, we have
so on
that.
and so forth.
That is in there. That is.
I know. I'm just saying, you're like, I don't care about stats. We gotta have a little bit.
Well,
I mean, that way you kind of understand what
those
you've
stats.
done, and I like to see that I've progressed from like day 1 through 3 to now 2 weeks later. I've actually increased my accuracy, so on and so forth. So.
Well, I agree with that.
Don't neglect the stats.
It's not out there for the world to see. It's not like you're wearing that on your sleeve. So, in all, I just feel like it's a lot more relaxed getting out there, the atmosphere, and that's why I've come to enjoy it. I guess maybe first-person shooter burnout. I don't know, but World of Warships has been great.
That was one thing. That's one thing. I think I've put 35 hours or so into World of Warships, but that was one thing that really drew me into it was being able to jump in, play it, not feel like I've got to do gymnastics on the keyboard to stay alive. You get a good cruise, you go along, you pick your... To me, it almost felt like chess.
Yeah. That's exactly what the word I was thinking.
Like you want to position yourself, and you want to make sure you're in the right position with the other guys you're with, and you're thinking ahead, because that's where... Whenever I died, it was because I stopped thinking ahead of what's coming next. I would see a target, and that's where all my focus would go, and I would just concentrate on that. And then you turn the corner, and there's a destroyer just snuck up on the opposite end of my guns and just wrecks me.
Yeah.
So that was one thing, and even then though, it always felt like when I died, it was fair. Like I died because I made the mistake. And that's back to the part where we were talking about the balancing between free-to-play, where, people that do pay versus the people that don't. I never felt cheated in that. And that's a good accomplishment for a war game where you're firing, huge rounds at each other, and you can be relaxed and be like, yeah, that wasn't too bad. I didn't mind it die, So I don't know where I was leading with that. Besides that, I think you guys have done a really good job on drawing people in and keeping them there. Even though the matches can be kind of quick, especially if you don't think ahead and you go out there and get sunk by a destroyer in 3 minutes into the match. But it's a nice change of pace from a lot of other games where you're constantly, frantic changing keys or whatever, to where you're just thinking ahead and you kind of play that chess.
Right. So, we want it to be easy to learn to play, easy to manage, right? But then every game should be different too.
Right. Yeah. I really, when I ended up finding out I could lock my guns, I think it's Control X, locks my guns to a direction, so that way I wouldn't have to hold in the mouse button to look around, because like Zoop was saying earlier, it's when a match first starts and you're obviously within well way from anyone being able to hit you, it's really nice to zoom in and check out the details and the ships and all that. So, but that was still handy to know that I could keep the guns locked toward the enemy while I'm just checking out the aesthetics of the game, so...
There's some beautiful scenery in that game.
It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Is there any plan for that scenery maybe to be destructive? Like maybe a village on the side that they can get hit by stray shots or anything of that nature? Or is it just going to be terrain?
Actually, early on, all the villages were destructible. But the thing is that we want to make sure that the net code has to be smooth and fast, right? It's an online game.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's that word.
There's that word.
We want to keep people's pings low. We want to keep them their frame rate high. So to do that, one of the things that had to go was destructible terrain, because it's just it's a nice to have. It looks good, but
adds nothing though.
Yeah, adds nothing to gameplay.
Fair enough.
So Chris. We've kept you here for an hour. Actually, we've gone over that, and We really appreciate your time. Where are you going from here? What does the future hold?
Who knows? It could be anything, right? Could be. Well, the only thing I know for sure, and wargaming is a kind of chaotic place to work, which is one of the things I like about it. But it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be risky, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. Like I said earlier, we'll have a new game announcement next month for the project that I'm working on, and we have other. I didn't say that. Darn. We will.
Has that not been released info? You heard it here first, folks.
We will have a project announcement that I can't talk about. We have a lot of other projects in the works. Sorry.
Edit that out, punt.
Sorry, Kelly and Chris.
Another 20,000 keys, and we'll edit that out for you.
No.
I'm kidding. No.
But anyway, so we have a lot of other things that are going on, and so expect to see a lot more from us besides just planes, tanks, and ships in the future. More platform-specific stuff, more outside of the World War II sphere stuff. Just trying to stay ahead of the game. That's what we're trying to do.
Awesome. Before. Go ahead. Sorry.
One more question. This guy's politely asked several times. Future long-term goals for World of Warships, Mr. 1VB Mustang.
Hey Mustang, I know him. So our future goals for World of Warships. Well, we want it to be played. We want players to play it. We want players to enjoy it. That's the biggest thing. We know if we make a good game, it'll make enough money, right? There's no question about that. We don't even care how many players pay for it because we know if enough players play it that some of them are going to go, all right, here's a few bucks for a ship. We want people to enjoy it. We want it to be fun. And this is kind of a new space. It's what we call, and I guess there's a pun here, this is what we call a blue ocean in the game space because there's not really another player in this market. There's not another ship battle game like that's this kind of awe-inspiring short-term drop-in, drop-out action battle game, right? And this is how we did with World of Tanks, right? We were the first one in the marketplace with this kind of gameplay, and we wanted to be the best, and that's what we did. And we're trying to do the same thing with this, and we're just hoping that players will enjoy the game. And if they enjoy it, we are going to continue piling content in like mad. Obviously we have the Americans and Japanese, but like we talked about earlier, right? The Germans had battleships, they had pocket battleships. The British had some really awesome ships, especially in the Mediterranean area. Yep. There were ships that didn't see a lot of action, but they were out there, and this is something that we've done in World of Tanks is brought out prototypes. We brought out ships that only one or two or so.
Montana.
Right, Montana.
It sounds like you've heard that request before.
We've got a lot of requests, and we've got a lot of interesting ships. There's no doubt. There's ships from World War I to the 1950s. There's other countries. Italy had actually a reasonable fleet. France did. They weren't conquered in the oceans. They were conquered on land, right? So their ships were kind of useless. But if they had been in battle, how would that look? We want to show that. So there's cool. plenty of room for growth in this.
Well, good. Thank you. We have taken you over your time.
Yeah, but before we go,
we're going to keep sure you're busy.
Yeah, before we go, everyone in the chat, we want to thank you for coming out. As we might have mentioned earlier, we will be streaming World of Warships after this. Give us maybe 5 or 10 minutes. We have more keys to give away. Again, just a friendly reminder about Operation Supply Drop. Again, that link's been posted in there. If you feel like you have some extra coin to give, feel free to. It helps people like Chris and myself or our comrades that are over there right now. It really does mean a lot. Operation Supply Drop has been great to us, and they've been great to our troops. So we really do owe them a lot, and thank them for bringing Chris on. It's really been an amazing hour and 10 minutes or so. I gained a lot in your historical knowledge. I could probably talk to you for another 4 hours just about military history. Unfortunately, can't do that. I'm sure your family wants you to be home. Anytime.
You got my contact info. This is actually my home office. This is all those books.
Okay.
I have another set of bookcases in my office at work, but with the same kinds of World War II and military history books on them. But
We have had a few people ask, like, how often do you plan on doing these with us? Because they found the Q&A interesting. So you're always welcome back. If you ever want to come back,
absolutely, anytime.
So,
all right, just give me a shout. Let me know. Thanks.
All right. It was great having you. Thank you, everybody. Check out Operation Supply Drop. Check out wargaming.net. And last but not least, check out Don't Revive Me Bro. Thanks, guys.
See you in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Banana pudding.